So, hello everyone, this is going to be my first time entering audio reviews with the combo review of the Logitech G522 and the Logitech G Pro X2 Superstrike. Now, these two have a common theme and it will reveal itself as I go on with this video, but just starting off, I'm gonna jump into the mouse first and I'm gonna cover the headphones later, just so that I can get the more hype product out of the way first, because this has been around for a bit. This is more hype. So, starting off with the Superstrike, let's start off with the build quality. In my opinion, the build is solid, but nothing notable. The good thing is it doesn't have any flaws like the Logitech, the 2C that came before it, the small variant, but it still has that sort of plasticky toy-like feel that hasn't improved Logitech at all. And if you've ever opened a Logitech mouse, you know that there's these two weak points where the 2C flex for me, right here, right where the back flare is. And it just caused strong potential for breakages. So right now it feels really rigid, but down the line, if you drop it, who knows what's gonna happen. At least I can report it on my copy. It feels really rigid, really solid so far. So yeah, the weight is pretty noticeably front heavy. Like, combined with the less than ideal shape for my hands, it makes things fairly fatiguing as I grip it and maneuver it around. It feels like I'm pushing a lot more weight up here, which is pretty unnatural. And because the shape is also pretty unnatural for my hand, I've never been a fan of the shape aside from the hump profile. And even then, other mice have executed this potato style hump better. It just ends up fatiguing me both on the side of weight and the side of shape. Now onto the most important part of this entire mouse, the clicks. I will start off with the pros, which is that it actually, with rapid trigger on, it actually improved my pistol spam in COD for like really short panic bursts, which is nice. The adjustable nature is very nice. You can adjust the switches in the software. Consistency has been fine on my copy, with both sides feeling relatively comparable. There's no real significant differences, especially the fact that other mice, even really highly regarded ones, have had varying click implementations from the left to the right. This being super consistent is pretty surprising to see, especially after Melon reviews break down how poorly thought out the implementation is. I'm not going to get into that because that is his content. I'd really suggest watching the Melon's reviews, both the review and the breakdown, just because it's really good detail on how this works and the flaws of this click system. Another pro is that it's silent. You know, it's always nice to be able to game at night without being paranoid if you live with other family members who might be sensitive to noise. And then the buzz on settings 3 and 4 is actually somewhat convincing. It's not as good as, say, like a KL optical or like an FE on an ACK. Maybe not even comparable to some Ratias. Definitely not comparable to the Razer Viper V3 clicks, or even my least favorite optical, the Logitech Light Force. Feels better, but this still feels somewhat convincing. Like, it does remind me of those like cheapo office silent mice. Not to say that's a good or bad thing, that's up to you to decide, but it is somewhat convincing. Now onto the cons. The first con I have is that I get a lot of misinputs with this thing. As regular clicks, for example the Cyrox V6, when you regular clicks have a force buildup and collapse on both the downstrokes. So you slowly press down, it builds up, it collapses down, then slowly release. There's a buildup, a little like blockage, like slowly build up blockage, and it breaks through, right? Slowly release, snap, and it goes up on the rebound, like it snaps open. This doesn't have that. This goes down, slowly building up in force, and goes up, slowly going down in force required to press. And what this leads to is that when I'm ADSing or like lining up grenades, I hold it down, my hand slowly loses tension as I get distracted by other things, because it's an FPS game. There's other things to think about than just your crosshair. I slowly release, and then because there's no force buildup, it just goes past the actuation point and releases my input, causing a fair few amounts of misinputs that happens in game by now. Another con is that fatigue does happen on setting 5, because I found that the intense rumble did stress out my finger joints more than I expected. It might just be a me problem, but I felt like it was pretty significant to the point where I do want to point it out. The implementation still feels fairly disconnected to me. I don't think it feels entirely fully convincing. It feels like early generation opticals where the input feels like it happens just a split second before or after the tactile bump. It does happen on here, especially with rapid trigger. It intensifies with rapid trigger. And my theory is that the haptics vibrate at one point while the range of input is this entire range. So you might press down here near like the bottom and it will still vibrate right here. So it doesn't line up entirely. They try to do the timing right, but I feel like the spatial effect of it is still causing that disconnect to me, for me at least. Also the fact that the spring in it has loosened up a bit as I played with it more, but like out of the box it was super heavy, causing a very strong mushy feel on the bottom, and it still feels pretty mushy when I bottom out. And this is very noticeable if you put your like tactility on 1, 2, or 3 on the lighter side. It will be very noticeable. The rebound feels also pretty bizarre, just because again the actuation can be a big range, while it can be this big range, right? This is the haptic motor, there's the big range of motion. But as I've explained, the bottom out is really heavy, while the actual top, like the top portion of the click, is pretty light, right? It ramps up really quick. So the RT range is really inconsistent, as the bottom is really heavy and the top is really light. So sometimes you're spamming, you get a really light click, and then you start slowly traveling down to the heavier parts, and it becomes really inconsistent, and you have to switch up your spam clicking rhythm, which I just don't think is something that should happen. It did mess me up on my spams or on like longer gunfights with like bigger magazines pretty often, so like I would say it's not a minor thing at all, and I do want to point it out. So I'm gonna be adding a lot of voiceover segments over gameplay about things I forgot to add, which is that I forgot to add that the Superstrike definitely did not improve my reaction time. I did feel occasionally that perhaps the shot I might have took did come out maybe just a split second sooner, but honestly it feels way too like human error to really say that it's a real advantage from the Superstrike. I would definitely need more testing with something with SPDT, for example, or maybe other sort of fast, like quote unquote response time improvement click systems to really get a stronger opinion on if the Superstrike is effective or not, because right now I feel like it's very not effective. And I'm just gonna show me sniping, just because it's about the most like ideal example of click and shot comes out, click, shot comes out. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? Like it's that split second timing with a COD sniper where you're constantly running around and you don't really have a lot of leeway, that I feel like really is gonna exacerbate if it's effective or not. And for me, it felt completely normal, to be honest. I honestly struggled in S&D with the Superstrike more than anything else, just because the shape wasn't good enough, and I feel like I wasn't able to aim good enough for me to even take advantage of the click system, if there was an advantage at all, being on settings 2 on the rapid trigger and 2 on the actuation. So like that's just just an insert, some extra slot that I forgot to write down in the script. As you can tell, I'm pretty amateur. Also, just want to add an apology for the state of my hand. I suffer from impulsively biting the skin off the side of my finger. It's a condition that I've been battling against. for a while now. I still haven't found a fix, so it's gonna appear in some reviews. I've tried to be paranoid about it and like only do reviews when it's in a good state, but honestly, with how stressful life gets, it's an impulsive condition that I just can't stop immediately right now. So yeah, that's all my thoughts for the clicks. Just to give like a summary of my opinion on the click system, I think it's trying too hard to reinvent the wheel and it's pretty unnecessary, though I do see the merit of the system and I want to see it be implemented in a more traditional micro switch package, just because I just don't think the weight trade-offs and like the feel difference is worth it right now. I think if we have like a more traditional micro switch package, it will be a lot more enjoyable to use. And I also have a few gripes with this, more like in tandem, both the click system in tandem with the shape, in tandem with the weight, is that I get a lot of fatigue while using this mouse. I'm just gonna rant it off right now. Because number one, the shape, if I grip it more naturally, like how I'd like it with the meat part of my palm almost touching the pad, my back knuckle sits very high up on the mouse, and then the button sloping doesn't slope down very naturally and leaves my fingers very high up, which slowly builds tension to these four knuckles, and it feels pretty bad, while also leaving my wrist at more of an angle, which slowly builds stress back here. Then on my ring finger, this stupid little unpolished like battle scar still digs into my ring finger, and also my ring finger has to like move around the front, the weight at the front, control the inertia at the front, which does slowly build up fatigue there as well. It's not significant, obviously. It's not like I'm gonna die, like it doesn't feel like my wrist is like instantly dead, but it does feel fatiguing, right? And combined with the rumble just accentuates the stress. On 4 it's manageable and I don't notice it as much. On 5 it's very noticeable and it does fatigue out my hand pretty significantly, which is pretty unfortunate. Onto the coating or surface finish, it's your typical like plasticky white surface finish. There's only a minor sense of extra grippiness on the plastic. It's very primitive and it's very cheap feeling for the modern standard. It's already being phased out by other brands for more extreme surface finishes that give you more grip, so I don't understand why Logitech won't invest in it. I'd like to see their black coating here, their black surface finish, because that's quite rubbery, that's quite grippy, and it's much more premium than this white surface finish. As for sensor and performance, battery life has been really stinking average for a Logitech product. I'm sorry, like this lasts like what, 4 days of game at most for me after a full charge, which is pretty disappointing at 1000 hertz as well. Maybe I just had like a dud charge, like I pulled it out without noticing, or like I lost power without noticing or something. But battery life has been a bit disappointing, and the sensor also had some spin outs when picking up and putting down in a more exaggerated, like aggressive pattern, exaggerated motion in between like CS and Valorant rounds. I had 1 or 2 spin outs. Nothing that happened in game, but like for a flagship product, I do want to point it out just to be honest. As for the skates, these unwiped skates are actually quite nice. I actually quite like them on my Passmith Genesis and my Pulsar ES2. They feel smooth. Not super fast. They feel around the same speed as most stock skates, but they feel smooth and fast enough for me. So I actually do quite like them. I actually like these skates just a tad behind the 2C stock skates, so that's a good on Logitech, I guess. And that's about all that I have to talk about for the mouse. Comparison will come after I talk about the headset, just to have some more watch time. So now moving on to the G522 headset. Gonna start with same build quality first. The build feels really disappointing. It's relatively cheap and just plastic heavy, like plastic usage pretty much entirely. It's very light, and despite the attempts of like this PBT grainy finish to make it feel more premium, it still feels relatively toy-like. It's very light, and the only real weight and heft for it, which not to say that that's a bad thing that it's light, but it does feel very toy-like. but the only real like heaviness and sort of rigidity coming from the cups. The cups feel really well built, but this frame and this yoke just feels, it just feels weak, with multiple potential weak points, like the skeletonized top with these construction lines. I don't know if you can see it, these construction lines feel like they're gonna snap off any moment now. Same with these yokes, like when I try to articulate the cups, you can see how much it bends, and I feel like it's just gonna snap off one day. So it's very toy-like, it feels very cheap, and it's pretty disappointing from the $160 headset. And this carries on. Also, I forgot to point out, my right side cup has way more articulation than my left side. Let me try and show it. So right side ear cup, you can see how the yoke isn't moving as I move it left and right and up and down. That's the maximum range. Left side, the yoke is moving as I articulate left and right. Right. Yeah, like I can only articulate left and right this much before it starts to bend. And then up and down is also a smaller range. So the build quality is very disappointing. The left side is stiffer than the right with less movement, and this carries onto the comfort and seal, because comfort on this headset is actually pretty good. The light clamp force, lightweight, and breathable cloth pads do make it quite comfortable. It's very breathable. It's easy to forget that it's on your head. But the main issue with the fit is that the seal is very inconsistent. The headband design is absolutely abysmal, because this is the tightest setting, and you can see it's very easy to hit the top plastic. It's way too flexible, and it hits the top plastic way too easily. And if you adjust it to the widest setting, it literally cannot flex. It cannot be a suspension strap. It's literally just this thin padding. Yeah, don't ask me why they designed it that way. And this carries on to the seal, which is because these pads, although they're soft, they're not very easily conforming to my head. They don't conform very easily. They're also not very deep, and the clamp force is way too light to really force them to conform. And what this leads to, especially with the inconsistent articulation, is that the seal is very inconsistent and breaks very easily. Which like any sort of head movement will break the seal and cause the sound to become a little bit weird, because your acoustic impedance with the space within the cup changes to all of a sudden have this outside air rushing in. And even like the best seal that I got still had a little bit of air leakage. It didn't seem to compromise the sound until I moved my head, but I just want to point it out because, again, this is a pretty expensive product, MSRP. So yeah, that's it for the comfort and seal. I've already said everything I want to say. Pretty disappointing. As for functionalities, you have your mic, which is 3.5. You have your mic mute button. You have your USB-C charging. No aux cable, which is a little bit sad. Volume wheel, really nice premium. No action button, which is confusing because there's Bluetooth, but you have this quick switch Bluetooth button that switches between your Bluetooth connection and your dongle, and then your power switch. Pretty simple. And for functionality, I found that G-Hub works well, and the connection was really good. Low latency, side tone was really natural. Doesn't get very loud though. Switching between devices was really seamless, and G-Hub EQ interface was really nice in my opinion. Really didn't leave much room for me to like accidentally mess up and blast my hearing, so that's good on Logitech. It's pretty good functionality from a PC perspective. And then on to sound quality, and let's talk stock sounds first. Here's the graph courtesy of Gadgetry Tech. It has been compensated, aka flattened, to the diffuse field of his rig, tilted by the ratio of 1 decibel per octave for a total of 10 decibel tilt. What this means is just that it's preferred target curve that is being compensated to, just to like make things easily understandable. It's a target curve that is estimated to be preferred by most people without any significant bass or treble adjustments from the diffuse field, which is just how our ears respond, or how the rig ears responds in an ideal space. Long tangent about the target curve aside, let's break down the stock sound. And as you can see on the graph, it's a little wonky. It's not the flattest thing ever, and I'd have to say the stock sound is borderline unusable, with a significant 700 Hz to 2000 Hz hump, causing a strong nasally sound on any speech or singing, and destroys any potential for staging, in my opinion. That hump really forced the sound to sound a lot more claustrophobic and disorienting in game. The lack of lower treble after 3000 Hz also contributes to a significant lack of detail, like perceived detail, and also the staging ability also takes a hit because there's no detail, there's no sense of airiness. Your brain can't process the spatial effects as easily if there's no treble. Pretty disappointing sound here. The upper treble did come off a little dark, but it's not like as significant. But it was too dark to add to like reclaim any sense of air and like salvage any potential like spaciousness left in this stock sound. The bass is really the only well done part where I do quite like it. It is kind of in line with Harman, and it does sound nice, pretty dynamic, but well restrained for a very natural but still fun presentation in my opinion. But this is coming from more of a treble head than a bass head. Now with parametric EQ, and I will show my EQ profile on screen. After EQing carefully to get close to the tilted diffuse field response in the upper registers, the headset's technical abilities really starts to shine, as in my opinion, I was not with the more tonally correct frequency response, I was not able to hear any bandwidth constraints or sense of imaging flatness that comes with other closed-back or wireless headphones. The staging opened up quite nicely with the treble now filled in and boosted quite significantly above stock and in line with the target curve. So imaging becomes a lot more clear and just precise as your brain processes it more naturally. The nasal hump getting killed off also really contributes to the imaging, in my opinion. It sounds a lot less claustrophobic, and I found it surprising the sense of the amount of detail retrieval or like perceived detail that my brain was able to pick up coming from these drivers and this wireless tech. It sounds really good to me. It didn't sound like I was listening to a wireless device. The detail retrieval is actually pretty amazing for something, actually compared to other like wireless headsets I tried at the Best Buy, where I got this after EQ sounded more detailed than a lot of headsets I've tried in the past, wired or not. Better than, I say, these sound more detailed after EQ than my NDR 7506. These borderline on par with my HD 600s, but it's probably more to do with the fact that your brain perceives detail a bit better when there's more airiness introduced, and the NDR 7506 does have a slightly claustrophobic nature. Even though it's not from the treble, it did have that flat, closed in sort of sound presentation. So maybe that's why these sounded more detailed, because there's more treble that I've added in with the parametric EQ. But either way, I do think these drivers and the wireless transmission perform really well in terms of detail retrieval. And with the parametric EQ, I felt like the bass now really shines because it has an actual natural mid-range to go alongside of, and the bass almost becomes the star of the show for me because it sounds so dynamic, so fun. It's restrained, it's fast, it's snappy, it never overstays its welcome, and yet it still comes with a nice sense of punch, nice sense of body. Really nice bass presentation that I just wish wasn't marred by that obnoxiously nasally mid-range on the stock EQ. And even the treble with the significant boost never felt like it was too sharp or like it had any sense of like group delay or decay issue. It comes and go in a really natural way. Probably because I aims really close to the target curve, but I do want to point it out just so that anyone who uses my EQ knows what the experience is like. In my opinion, parametric EQ really did save this entire headset for me, and without it, I would have probably tossed this thing in the dumpster, aka sold it off immediately and not even make this review. Onto the most amazing part of this headset, the mic, because fun fact, the entire segment of the Superstrike was recorded with this mic right here. I will do a mic test just so that you can hear the different EQ presets, but really this is a really nice mic and rivals any like cheap lavalier mic or cheaper dynamic mics out there. With the EQ, I'd say it rivals my condenser, it rivals my Solocast. So yeah, I really have no issues with it. It's a fantastic mic, and really the only innovative and redeeming part about this headset for me, aside from the parametric EQ, which solidifies the theme of these two products, the Superstrike and this, being that they're trying to be innovative, but in the pursuit of innovation, they forget to just polish everything else and leaves a lot to be desired, because the Superstrike, when compared to older Logitech mics, just comes off really lazy. They use the same shell, just cut down a bit more to fit the new tech. They leave this battle scar still, and the shell, the skate design is it's very outdated. The shape is outdated, and it's fatiguing compared to other shapes nowadays that are equally as safe, but also performance also has better fundamental design. So yeah, both products have this innovative but fundamentally disappointing character that I felt like is really thematic for a modern Logitech. Anyway, enough yapping, onto the mic test. Enjoy. So this is my HyperX Solocast, relatively beginner, cheap condenser mic. It sounds really quite good for how cheap it is. In my opinion, I've used it for even a little bit of music work, and it has handled pretty much everything really well. No EQ, set at 100 gain, speaking at about maybe 10 centimeters away from it. This is going to be my baseline for most headset, because really, if you're going to be buying a headset, I expect the mic to be able to compete with a cheap entry-level condenser mic, because if you're not getting a good mic with your headset, you might as well just get regular headphones and a separate mic, alright? So yeah, this is going to be my baseline. So this is going to be the mic test on stock settings for the Logitech G522. As you can hear, it's quite clear and well bodied. Again, this is stock as it comes in G-Hub when you install it. I did not change anything, in Windows. And the stock settings for this mic does sound quite clear. It's very well bodied. It's not overly thick and bassy. The top end is well represented. Doesn't have any sort of compressed or lo-fi sound. Generally, quite a well done mic here from Logitech. I really have to give props to them for this. This is where probably 90% of the budget and 90% of the cost for this headset comes, because the rest is really not that notable. But this mic is genuinely so impressive to me. This rivals like actual separate like dynamic mics that I've heard be used, and is a really big accomplishment for Logitech. I would say that the only weakness of this mic comes in the fact that it's still a little bit quiet at times. I really have to crank up the gain to really get the mic to sound loud when I'm on a call, and in this recording I really have to crank up the gain. And also G-Hub is a bit weird sometimes. It just flicks my gain down to like a negative 12 decibels for some reason. I had to mess around with the gain settings a lot just to fix it, so yeah. Anyway, let me demo some EQ for this mic, some EQ presets that they've included as well, because I do like one or two of them. So this is the mic set to FM station, and as you can hear, it's probably going to be a lot more well bodied and even more like crispy and clear up top. because it's just a V-shaped EQ. It really does bring this mic to just another level. It also amplifies your voice in terms of volume a little bit. So yeah, here's how it sounds. I generally use it stock just because I don't like fussing around with EQ. Sometimes it doesn't save on some headset. It's just my sort of paranoia. But yeah, this is how it sounds. Generally, quite excellent in my opinion. And then this is the mic on Broadcaster 2, generally quite similar to FM Station and Broadcaster 1, which I'm not going to demo. They're all relatively V-shaped EQs that are really going to bring out the warmth and rumble from your voice, especially when you get a little bit more gravelly. And then the V-shaped tuning also boosts your treble just to bring out a little bit more airiness, a little bit more liveliness. That's really going to try and simulate the sound of a condenser, like a proper big separate condenser. They all sound really good. They're all gonna be pretty nice to do podcasts with and listen back. Generally gives that pre-edited sort of sound that is gonna make it really satisfying just to listen back, and it's gonna be perfectly practical to bring into like a podcast studio. I'm also gonna be trying to EQ this myself, which is gonna be coming up next, just to see how much I can bring out of this mic that's really going to present the most natural and nicest, in my opinion, sound of your voice. In case you ever want to use this for some like really, really amateur singing, because I do think it's potentially viable. So here's my custom EQ. This is the best I can do. I think it sounds really natural with my voice compared to like other mics I've used, like my current Solocast. And other mics, like I used to have a Quadcast before I moved. Generally sounds quite nice. I think this is the best I can do. I'll drop it on screen. Just in case you guys want to copy, this is probably going to be the most representative of your voice if you ever want to use this headset for singing. Again, I do think that this headset is actually viable for a little bit of singing work. Nothing professional, but just some amateur stuff. It's very, very nice. So on to the final part of the video. This is going to be the shape breakdown and comparisons. Here are the 4 contestants that I'm going to be comparing against, and the reasoning will become clearer as I break it down, hopefully. So let's start with the measurements. The Superstrike measures at a 5.9 grip width, 5.9 centimeter grip width, 6.3 centimeter back flare, 6.0 centimeter front width, 2.7 centimeters button height at the wheel, which is pretty tall for modern standards, 3.9 roughly 4 centimeters hump height, and a 12.4 centimeter length. Next up is the Cougar Revenger Pro, which measures at a 5.7 centimeter grip width, quite a bit thinner, 6.4 centimeter back flare, 6.2 centimeter front width, 2.6 centimeter button height at the wheel, which is not significantly shorter, but I'm gonna elaborate further why I put this here. 3.9 centimeter hump height and 12.2 centimeter general length. This is gonna be the closest contestant in terms of like general shape to the GPX, being directly inspired by it. Next up is the Maya X, with its only real difference from the GPX measurements wise being the button height at the wheel measuring at a much lower 2.2 centimeter. Otherwise, it's basically the same measurements as the G Pro X Superlight. It has a hump height of 3.8 being the other significant difference, but still not as significant as the button height difference. And then finally the Cyrox V6, which measures at a 5.6 centimeter grip width, 6.1 back flare and front width, 2.4 centimeter button height at the wheel, 4 centimeter hump height, and then an 11.9 centimeter length, being our smallest contestant here. Now in my opinion, the aim potential for the shapes are going to be a 5 out of 10 for the G Pro X Superlight, 8 out of 10 for the Cougar and the Cyrox V6, and then about a 6 out of 10 for the Maya X. The reasoning why is that, to start off with a side curvature first, Both the Logitech and the Maya X are relatively flat horizontally compared to these two specimens, with these two coming off a lot more aggressive, the Cougar being very aggressive with its side curvature horizontally. All but the Maya X here have a standard arc vertical curvature, being that it curves inward, then flares out at the top to form a ledge. The Maya X differs by being convex, so it starts thin at the bottom, then basically widens by the middle, and then stays that width at the top, and even curves in a little bit at the top, so you don't really have a strong ledge. Now the front flare on these two are subtle, and then the front flare on these two are more aggressive. The Cougar being the most aggressive, so if you don't like a front flare, this might not work for you. But the most important thing and why I rate these two as having a much better aim potential with their shapes is the back flare to grip width, because the back flare to grip width ratio and how wide or flat, how aggressive, how tight the waist feel basically differs significantly with these mice, right? So how this ratio works is that if it's closer to one, it's flatter and the waist is less extreme, while if it's further away from one, then the waist is more extreme. You get a potentially thinner grip width, more aggressive back flare, and leads to just a better fundamental design for aiming. So the ratio for both the Maya X and the GPX is a 1.05, while this is at a 1.12 and a 1.09, which is it seems small, but it's much more significant, and you do feel it in hand, with this feeling a lot more locked in and a lot more nimble when doing micro precisions, especially horizontally. Same with the Cyrus V6. And so both of these shapes just feel a lot more sound for aiming than the G Pro X Superlight, which is why I say this is outdated. As for the other stats, they don't matter as much until the button sloping, which is where I'm gonna say is the other significant difference between these, because the button sloping on the Maya and the Cyrus V6 is way better than the button sloping on the Cougar and the GPX, because having a more aggressive and quick button sloping after the hump, right, it slows down a lot quicker, allows for a lower button height and a more natural knuckle position, in my opinion, and it feels a lot nicer. The Cougar still has the outdated GPX button sloping, but it doesn't feel as bad because the rest of the shape isn't nearly as bad. But for the most part, all of these I will say is better than the GPX in some way. The rest of the stats that I've quantified are on the screen to read. One more thing to note is that the side to top transition on most of these are pretty rounded, but the Maya X feels extremely even more rounded than the GPX somehow, which is pretty cool to see, but they're all like really rounded. There's no sense of sharp ledge going on here. Now onto the more subjective performance ratings. I'd say stability for the G Pro X Superlight is a 6 out of 10 due to the lack of a strong back flare, the hump being the only saving grace, which is why it scores above a 5. The grip width as well leads to a very shaky sense of aim just because it's so wide, which is why it only stays at a 6, because if it had a thinner grip width and a more exaggerated back flare, it would have scored better, which is why I'd say the Cougar is an 8 out of 10 for stability, a 9 even with how aggressive that curvature is. This is going to be an 8, this is going to be a 9 out of 10 for stability, 8 out of 10. The Maya X I'd say is about similar, 6 out of 10 as well. So these two are not great for stability in my opinion, unless all you care about is not moving your mouse vertically, but that's not really stability, because like who cares about that, you know? Especially if you play tracking heavy game, that's a bad thing. For precision, I'd rate the GPX a 3 out of 10 because a lack of a thin grip width, tall button height, which is, it feels less like you're pinching a pen, which in my opinion is the most natural way of aiming, so I'd always rate lower button height better. The high button height here really doesn't do it any good, and the potato-y hump also doesn't do it much good, so 3 out of 10 precision right here for the GPX. For the Cougar, I'd rate it at about an 8 out of 10 for precision, mostly carried by this incredible curvature profile at the bottom. Just really nice to aim with in hand. The Cyrox gets about a 7, being a slightly less exaggerated version of the Cougar, but it's more nimble with its shorter length and smaller size overall. So I'd say maybe, I'd bump it up to an 8 out of 10, because why not? just kidding. And also the Maya X, I'd say instead of getting a 3, it gets a 5 because it has the lower button height, but also this hump profile, I forgot to say. The hump profile here is more in line with like a Viper V3 being sloped instead of rounded. And that really helps with the nimble feel for vertical tracking and vertical aiming. So which is why this gets a 5, maybe even a 6 out of 10 for precision, while the Logitech only gets about a 3. For comfort, the Logitech only gets a 6 as well, just because I find that this curvature, especially this front height at the front, the bad button sloping, really contributes to a really fatiguing feel in hand. The Cougar also scores only a 6 out of 10 for comfort. The only reason, actually no, the Cougar gets a 5 out of 10 for comfort because it's less safe. It's less safe and it doesn't have comfort grooves. The GPX at least gets a 6 because it's safer. It's a bit safer. The hump, there's less aggressiveness here, which means you're not going to be tensing up your thumb as much, which in my opinion feels a little bit more comfortable. So the GPX gets a 6 while this gets a 5. But it's not a significant difference because this technically has comfort grooves, but it's really not noticeable. And both of these I'd say aren't great for comfort, but this is really good for aim, while this is not. The Maya X is my favorite for comfort here. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. It's the rounded side to top curvature while still retaining a sloped hump allows me to really relax my finger. The low button height really contributes to my joints feeling less stressed. And just overall, the convex sides also give this pillowy feel. It just feels very comfortable in hand, so 9 out of 10 comfort. And then the Cyrox V6 is somewhere in between. This gets a 5, this gets a 9. I'd give this about a 7. It's not as aggressive, so it feels more comfortable, but also the lower button height also boosted up a bit, so this gets a 7 out of 10 for comfort. And then for safeness, obviously this is the safest at a 9 out of 10. But I'd say the Maya X is potentially even safer than this of a shape. It's really easy to find a grip on the Maya X. I can grip it in many ways. So I'd say that the Maya X get a 9.5 out of 10 for safeness. And then these two get about this gets a 6 and this gets a 5 just because of their more aggressive profile. That's going to be less safe for a wider range of hand sizes. And that's about it for the shape breakdown. It's pretty in-depth. I messed up multiple times there. I apologize. And the shape format, I still haven't made an explanation video yet, but I'm gonna try and get on that soon. Anyway, that's the shape breakdown. And really, to sum up the point of this entire breakdown, I want to say that this shape is extremely outdated because these two in the middle are going to be so much better for aim or retaining that potato hump that gives great stability, right? They're going to be so much better for actually aiming purposes because of their much better fundamental design. And then the Maya X, in my opinion, is just a much better like gift option for like giving a nice mouse to someone else, just because the shape is much more comfortable and the shape is also much safer, so it's a lot easier for people to pick up and use compared to the G Pro X, which is in my opinion just super outdated now and it's just really unpolished. This battle scar, again, I'm gonna rant on that because it's so unpolished. Fix it. Anyway, that's it for the Superstrike review, and along with the G522. For my conclusion, I've already said in the G522 section, so I'm probably just gonna point back to the timestamp where I gave my conclusion, which is that it's sacrificing too much in the pursuit of innovation, and I just can't recommend it at its asking price of $180 US. Anyway, thanks for watching and enjoy some highlights.
That's one. I think
I think we can take out CD here. He's late.
Oh, he's got food.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah.
Two.
They're flanking. We need some Cypher util on both sides.
EMP location reset. We have the overload device.
locked down. Hostile UAV established above. Hardpoint contested. Hardpoint located. Contesting hardpoint. Hardpoint is active. Got the hardpoint. Hardpoint contested. Contesting hardpoint. Hardpoint located. Hardpoint locked down. Hardpoint active. Got the hardpoint. Still on the road. Don't let him fucking breathe.